I want to talk about Ole Gunnar Solskjær and his quite insensitive comments about using the current situation to exploit football to make things better for Manchester United. Probably the most crass load of rubbish I've heard since this unfortunate episode all started. Before I get into that, we've got a game for you. We're going to start trying to introduce this. Got to thank Dom, who is, you'll recognise him in the chat as my showbiz name. He's come up with a concept. Name that noble. The premise is very, very simple. Dom has superimposed Mark Noble's face on either an existing or a former West Ham player. You've got to guess who that player is. And I will give the answer later on in this show. So, let's kick it off now. There he is. Anybody recognise him there? Looks familiar. Maybe the kit is a clue. I thought I knew who it was, but I got it wrong. Right, anyway, that's all you're getting. We'll have the rest later on. You've got to be honest, because you'll get to the end of the video or whenever I pop it in, edit it in later on, and you'll be able to write underneath. But be honest, let me know if you got it or not. Okay, just before we carry on, you can see I'm wearing a T-shirt in homage to the Belfast Hammers. This is for my mate Peter. Peter's been in isolation for a long time. He is very much in the vulnerable category because he's not had the best run of luck with illnesses. Peter, I wish you good health, mate. Stay safe, and we will see you on the other side at the boats before a game for a good old bite to eat and a drink, my friend. You take care, and a big hello to all the rest of the Belfast Hammers, by the way. Later on the main channel, myself and Gio have got a game of FIFA. Newcastle versus West Ham. I will tell you no more, but tune into that. It's well, I think it's quite entertaining anyway. Let me know what you think on that one. Okay, back to the subject at hand. Ole Gunnar Solskjær. This is, I don't like it. I do not like this at all. Okay, here we go. I'll read from the article. Manchester United's Ole Gunnar Solskjær has fired out a warning which may ultimately be extreme, but gives us a sign of the things which may come to pass if his threat is carried out. I'm not sure it was a threat, by the way, but let me read what he said. He said, football is going to get back to normality at one point, and it's very important we're ready when that happens. I wouldn't disagree with that at all, by the way. I think it's very important that clubs and players prepare as best they can. If you're in isolation, keep yourself fit so as you're ready to go back. That sort of thing, not a problem at all. He said, we want to be the best at everything. And of course, now is a chance to spend more time. You can discuss players, discuss plans, and we've evaluated what we need. Of course, the coaching staff have looked at games, evaluated games, and we've been discussing all of this on video calls. Not a problem. Quite right too. I would expect West Ham to be doing exactly the same. He said, then there's the market. Who knows what the market, how the market's going to react to this? Who knows which clubs will need to sell players? So obviously there he's alluding to the fact that some clubs are going to be in financial difficulty and might need to sell their players. He said there might just be a situation where you can exploit. And I know that we at Manchester United are one of the biggest and the best financially well off. I'm sure we're capable when we get back to normality that we can do the business that we want to do. There's one big word in there, which is exploit. Now, I'm not reading too much into it, and I'm not really having to paraphrase too much. What he's very much saying is that there will be clubs that need to sell players. He's saying that there will be clubs in financial difficulty. And what he's saying is he used the word, is exploit. Manchester United are one of the biggest and the best financially off, and they can exploit it. So what he's saying very much is, look, there's going to be clubs that are going to the wall. There's going to be clubs that are desperate for cash. We can take the family silver for next to nothing. I think in the current climate, I am surprised that got past the editorial process at all. I would imagine, I don't know, I'm guessing that was on Manu TV or whatever, MUTV, whatever it's called. Someone's had to edit that. Somebody has had to proofread it if it's an article. Someone's decided, let's go, let's publish that. And I think whoever's done that has got no sensitivity and no care for the current situation at all. It's perfectly plain and clear that Ole Gunnar Solskjær hasn't. Because that, I've watched for years and years and years Man United get accused of being arrogant. I've not particularly joined in. I don't have this mass hatred for other clubs either. A rivalry for Tottenham, granted. But this thing about hating Liverpool, this thing about hating Man United, I've never particularly had it. I don't like the way that football's gone. I don't like the way that football has these mega rich clubs. I quite liked the fact that Nottingham Forest could win the European Cup. You know, I quite like the fact that Aston Villa could win the European Cup. I clearly love the fact that West Ham could win an FA Cup and go and play in European competition and win a trophy over there as well. Good. It's nice to watch football or any sport when you don't know the outcome. That's my problem with the big clubs. But for a long time, Manchester United has been accused of being arrogant. We're at a point where the players seem to have agreed a proposal where they can give money to the NHS charities. That's great. Absolutely the right thing to do. Very much needed. We're low on beds. We're low on respirators. There's many volunteers. I think over 600,000 volunteers are going in, putting themselves in harm's way at the front line in the virus to try and help out to make the country better. There are, particularly if we go into the football point of view, there are clubs who are struggling. There are clubs that look like they're about to go out of business. As I say, I would expect one or two to happen in the next week or two. There are clubs unable to pay their lowest paid member of staff. There are Premier League clubs, as we've discussed before on this very channel, who are basically asking the government to pay the tea lady whilst they pay their players 200 grand a week or whatever. This is a time for everybody to come together, for the community to come together, albeit socially distanced, of course, and for football, certainly, to come together and help one another out. To come in at this point and say there's going to be some clubs struggling. They're going to be selling players on the cheap because they're going to have to, they're going to need to, and we are going to exploit it because we're the biggest and we're the best, is the most classless, the most crass thing I think I've heard in this whole episode. I don't mean on social media. People say nasty things on social media and stuff like that. I mean from somebody who you would expect maybe, well, I was going to say a little bit of leadership, definitely a little bit of leadership. This is the manager of Manchester United. He's meant to be a statesman in many respects for Manchester United. The sort of things that should be coming out of his mouth are, we are going to help our local clubs. Which the local clubs are going to, bless them, Bury have already gone, but they're going to be clubs like Oldham and Stockport and places like that. That's what they should be saying. We're going to help these people. Not saying, which is pretty much it, when Watford go, we're going to get Delafeu for nothing. Which is pretty much what's going on here. I do expect, by the way, and let me get this absolutely right, and I would include West Ham in this, that there will be players who will get released by clubs because clubs can't afford them. I expect we will suffer as a club. I expect players will want to leave for the reasons discussed, particularly players who have been in lockdown in this country are going to want to go home. I totally get it. You're not going to command the same fees for players as you did before. I think we'll lose out financially. I think we'll take a hit. I really do. And I think we'll take a hit. I think there'll be lower league teams will take a hit. And I think what might be a £15 million championship player might be a £10 million championship player. I've discussed all this before, of course. So I do think there are going to be clubs, by and large, taking advantage of it. But I do think there needs to be something in place whereby, I used the example of QPR. If we go and take QPR's best player for a cut price fee, we have to be able to say to QPR, there you go, look, we've taken your player, we've taken him for a little less money. Take Nathan Trott and pick one other from our academy. Take these guys for a season. There's your right back or whatever. There's your winger. There's your goalkeeper sorted. No loan fee. Something like that. That's how I expect things to be done. So there will be some advantage being taken. I don't just think because Solskjær mentions that they're looking at all of the all of the videos. They're assessing all players. All the staff are coming together on a conference call. So what really troubles me is Spain and Italy are in a terrible, terrible state. I mean, the communities, for a start. I mean, they are in a massive state of mourning. There are such a massive loss of life. You'd think we're in lockdown here and we've had a loss of life over here. Ain't nothing to what's going on over there. People are very worried. You may well know that Pep Guardiola's lost his mum to this very nasty, horrible thing. Whilst our players have been talking about what they can do to help, and the PFA have been pontificating around what pay cut to take, I think Juventus, for instance, I don't think they're taking any wage at the moment, something like that, the players. And I believe Barcelona have taken a 70% pay cut. I mean, this is serious stuff over there. Football's not even on the agenda over there. It's about getting the country up and running. And while this is happening, you've got, I don't know, pick your player, but you've got Man United rubbing their hands, thinking, maybe we can get Luis Suarez for a tenner. What currency can we make from this current situation? I just don't think it's very nice at all. There we go. Just my opinion. Some people will come out of this well. And I don't mean financially well, I mean morally well. There will be clubs that come out of this and you think, okay, good job throughout that. I mean, thus far, West Ham have done a decent job. There will be some clubs who do not come out well. And I certainly, Gio alluded to it on a cup of tea last night, which you haven't seen it, it's up on the main channel. Tottenham are not going to be looked on in a positive light when they go out and break the transfer record on a player, bearing in mind they haven't even bothered to pay their lowest members of staff. I think after this, I think people are going to look on Manchester United in a very different light. Obviously, I am aware that people didn't like them anyway, a lot of people. But I'm certainly looking at them in a different way now, thinking that's crass, that's nasty. And even if you were thinking it, even if you were intent on doing it, to come out and say those words that clubs are going to be struggling, financially struggling, and we can exploit it. Not nice. Dog eat dog world? Yeah, you know what? Maybe it is. Maybe it usually is, but it shouldn't be at the moment. It really, really shouldn't be. And it just shows what I've been saying throughout this whole saga, that football operates in a bubble that is completely detached from the real world. Anyway, with that in mind, namethatnoble. Did you get it? Did you know? Who is it? Gotta be honest with you. When I saw that arm in the air, I initially thought Joe Cole. Very, very familiar celebration, but it is, indeed. Did you get it? It's Ian Pearce. Centre half and sometimes striker. If you remember, in an emergency, of course. Thank you, Dom, for putting that together. We'll be back with a few more of those, as long as Dom was willing to do it. He did everything, did the artwork, did the boing, and all that. Don't forget to join us on the main channel later on for a bit of FIFA. I'm not giving anything away. I will get... My lips are sealed. Take care, everyone. Take good care of yourselves. Peter, there you go. All of that. I can do that. I've supported West Ham all my life. I can kiss the badge. I'm loyal. I know what I'm doing. I'm not exploiting anyone.